Hey guys, thanks for clicking on the video and giving us a little bit of your time on the Weekly Word. We have a special treat for this Weekly Word. This is Jamie and Sarah Eldridge. They're both newlyweds and I'd say big leaders in the young adult community. And so what we're going to launch kind of a relational unit, and this is going to be kind of the start of it. The topic that we're actually going to start talking about is actually sex in this video, and then we're going to have a longer preaching on it on September 11th, which Jamie and Sarah are going to lead. So we wanted to start with the Weekly Word, just kind of talking about just sort of some sex questions and stuff like that. I want to say this by and large, I know that sex is a subject that honestly we do not talk about enough at the church. We just don't. I don't think that's good, and I think honestly because of that, there's just the enemy has taken a lot of ground in the area. And I'd say that honestly a lot of people walk around with very little revelation about it because I don't think we're pressing in and asking the Lord about it. So I, as one of our core values in the young adult ministry about being authentic, we actually kind of want to get as real as possible. I'm sorry if that makes anyone uncomfortable. That's not anyone's intention here. We just really want this thing to hit real life. And with that, I want to say one other thing. None of what we're talking about we're not trying to stir shame in anyone. We understand that probably the majority of people in the young adult community and probably in the body of Christ of young adults are not people who are perfect and spotless and have no gray areas in kind of the sexual realm. Most of them are people who've honestly, they've made mistakes, and they're trying to figure out what's life after that. How do I live my life? So I'll start with me, and then they'll be really honest. I was actually engaged about 2.5 years ago, and I'll admit I've actually never fully had sex, but I will say that we definitely went too far a lot of times, and honestly lived in compromise about it. And I can tell, legitimately, it did affect my relationship with God, without a doubt. It will, because you'll get in his presence, and it's not like God has a problem with you. You have a problem being next to God and stuff like that. And it was a hard place to live in. It just was, so that's me being real. I actually have no problem talking about it. If you want to ask me about stuff personally, that's fine. But how about you both?
You want to go first?
Yeah, that's fine. Well, if anybody's known me for more than about 10 minutes, you know that my son is 5, and we've only been married 3 months. So clearly I have a history. I got divorced when Vincent was 6 months old, so I've had sex before Jamie. And along the way, I also lived with someone and dated a couple people that I have slept with. So while we waited, there are other people that I definitely did not wait, and it heavily, heavily affected my outlook towards God and my time with Him. For a long time, I struggled in that area, just not connecting, totally rejecting. And I think that probably being sexually active with someone that was not my partner added to that struggle.
Yeah. I mean, yes, Sarah and I did wait until we were married, but to say that we were, like you said, perfect angels, that would be a lie. We did not have sex before we were married, but we did fall, and in that we did ask God for forgiveness, and we did say, we did talk to, a couple of people and said, kind of hold us accountable, and ask for help, because we knew that wasn't God's best plan for us.
Yeah.
But to say that it wasn't hard would be a lie. It was hard. Until it was hard right after we got engaged. That was the hardest moment, and then it was like God's hand just fell on, and it was just got easier until we got married, and then it was obviously a much different thing.
Yeah.
But for my past, this isn't a brag thing by any means, but before I was a believer, I had sex with. I honestly don't know how many girls I've had sex with. I know that sounds disgusting. It really is very gross. But to be 100% honest, I can't even. I look back at my previous life, I'm like, what was I thinking?
Well, it's what the world's saying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like what the world tells you to do.
So for me, it was just I did whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and if one booty call didn't answer, I called the next one. And that's just how I lived, and now being a believer, even after I became a believer, to be honest, it wasn't like I became a believer, I'm never having sex again. There was still things I had to learn and grow and change because even though I was born again, I still had, God was still changing me, and He still is. But I was still growing and learning. But I got into the kingdom and had to change.
Yep.
I didn't have to. I got to change.
You get to change.
And it was. And it took a process, and God teaching me, and Him, helping me up when I would fall. There was even after I was a believer. I had sex with several girls after I became a believer, and then it got to the point to where like, okay, I can't even do that. Then other things, it's like, oh God, I can't even do that, and then it was just kind of got to the point to where then Sarah and I met, and and I was in a much healthier place to, move forward to be married. So,
Well, thank you both for your honesty. Again, we're just trying to be real here. You can talk to, I'm pretty sure you could probably talk to either of them if you just have questions or anything like that. So just, I just kind of want to answer 3 quick questions and stuff like that, just about sex. And then a lot of this, they'll probably expand upon in the talk or something like that, but I just kind of wanted to get the subject going and freshen our heads for, September 11th. So guys, give me just like a really brief, like biblical sort of like, what does the Bible say about sex and stuff like that? Like how do we view it from the book?
Yeah. One thing that really hit home for me was like understanding why God made us man and woman, because we know originally in Genesis that He just made man, and then He saw it wasn't good for man to be alone, decided to make a helpmate. And I think that is so significant and relevant to our sex lives now, because it is this, that God designed us to have intimacy with Him. And then He saw that, humans wanted intimacy as well with each other. So He created man and woman to have that kind of intimacy, to form that kind of relationship. It's actually representative of how we're supposed to be spiritually with God, like connected, seeking each other, learning each other all the time. And so I think that Genesis has a lot to say. Yeah,
I think that, God wanted us to be in intimacy with Him. Mm-hmm. And so I think that He, of course, created sex so we can become one. I think the whole intimacy thing, that's a big thing in my heart, because intimacy is really into me, you see. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard, to have a biblical understanding of sex without understanding intimacy, in my opinion, because you can't, I can't honestly be married. I guess I can't have sex outside of marriage, and then have that intimacy, because it's much different when you are married. That's just, I guess, my thoughts, right off the top of my head.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'll say the church, by and large, some of you guys probably might even come from a church background that has literally said things like this. The church, by and large, actually has a very, I'd say, inaccurate undertone of probably how God sees sex. A lot of some of the church background, and this actually comes from Greek philosophy and stuff like that, is actually that because sex is a desire that is bodily, it is wrong. It is a cardinal evil desire, which is ridiculous, because nobody thinks it's a sin to get hungry. But for some reason, we have thought that, and that's because the word flesh in the Bible means actually a lot of different things, and is kind of used to mean different things at the same time. So there's some of us might even be thinking that sex is actually something that is wrong, that your desire for it is wrong, that it's purely made only for reproduction and stuff like that, and that God just made a mistake to make it enjoyable. With that said in mind, how do you guys think that God actually sees sex?
I don't even believe I know. I'm willing to go on record and say I know. I know that God sees sex as a form of worship, because He created it. He created sex for a man and woman to become one. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just as we're one with Him. We're just, I want to say creating, but you can't be creating. But you're recreating what He designed. Man and woman becoming one. It's a form of worship, or worshiping. And I think that if God He loves when we worship. Yeah. So, if He loves when we just worship with music, let's, have sex in marriage. And lots of it. Yeah. And worship Him. Yeah. Worship Him in the morning and night. We know what the Bible says on that. There's an entire book dedicated to it. It's called the Song of Solomon.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't get talked about much. It doesn't get preached on very much, but it's definitely there and has a lot of pages all to itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we know that it's God inspired. And if we say that the Song of Solomon isn't, then you're saying the Word of God isn't.
Yeah.
So
That's a
clearly,
good
God
word.
has inspired sex in the Bible.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Well, one last question. I know you'll probably talk about this more in the talk, but I think it's important to cover. Like, obviously, the whole wait for marriage thing it's not cultural. It just isn't. Let's be real. I think about probably the messages I hear about how I should be living as a young adult, and it probably is like if I'm not like aimed at marrying someone, I should probably actually take as many partners as I want, like sort of a thing, and just have a good time, sort of thing. So like, we know like the Bible says to wait, so we do, sort of a thing. But like, that's a good enough reason, but I think it's not a very substantial reason, as in that doesn't give you a lot of substance. That just honestly kind of puts you under the law. So like, what do you guys like? What is like a good substantial reason that you think is like, this is why God tells us to wait, not just it's in the Bible, but really where's like a good reason? And again, they'll talk about this much more in their talk.
This will be a big one we're going to elaborate on, I think. But I mean, we've been talking a little bit about this, obviously, but go ahead, what were you going to say?
Well, I think that if we look at God from the perspective of a father, and I look at it from the perspective of a mother, when I look at my child and I tell him, don't put a fork in a light socket, it's not good. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. And I think that sex is kind of the same thing. Is he's saying it not to be mean, not because he doesn't want you to sin, not because he's just being a big old bossy dictator. That's not what I had planned for you. That's not good for you. And the more times you put that fork in the light socket, that's going to hurt. And it's the same thing as that, like we said originally, that that our pasts, it affected us. It affected us emotionally. Sometimes people physically, spiritually. That it's God is telling you, I want you to say this for you, not for me, not because I look at you differently, but because you look at me differently.
That's a good word.
That's really good. I know for me, as far from just to kind of go maybe a little rabbit trail a little bit, but I know for me, like, when I was always told, and I've heard throughout my life, that, to have sex, when you get with someone, you got to have sex with them and make sure they're good in bed.
Yeah.
I was even told that before I married Sarah by a couple people that I love. I mean, like, legitimately, like, they are very close to me, and these people told me, like, I could never have sex with someone. I could never marry someone unless I've had sex with them. And my response to that was, my love for Sarah isn't contingent on whether she's good in bed or not, because I know, because if we just want to be real, and if you really think about it, like, we're two different people that has two completely different desires and mindsets, and we have these kind of things come up already as a married couple in 3 months. We're brand new. We're still learning. I mean, we'll be learning for the next 50, 60 years, but like, we didn't, like, she has different desires and I have different desires. So to say, like, well, I want to make sure they're good in bed is very selfish.
Yeah.
It's very selfish, because it's like, then it's all about me.
Yeah.
It's all about what my needs are, and hers don't matter.
Yeah.
And that's completely backwards, and that's not of God. You know what I mean? And I think that was something that really, I mean, that it's just something I really felt in my heart, I guess.
Yeah.
She brought this up to me the other night. She said that, just last night, she said that anytime, a believer can honestly, and this isn't to condemn anyone by any means. This isn't to condemn anyone.
Yeah.
Don't get upset. This is pillow talk we're giving to you. It wasn't at the pillow, but it was it was actually at the dinner table, but without Vince. He was in bed. But she said anytime two people that are not married have sex or watch pornography or or masturbate or anything, a lot of times it's for very selfish reasons. They're doing it for self-pleasure instead of like for example, we're married, like, we have sex, and it's no longer, I don't have sex, because before, my previous life, I would call girls up for a booty call because I had a need I need met.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm married, it's no longer about me, it's about her, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Now it's about,
that's actually scriptural. Like, it's in the Bible.
Yeah,
it's telling us that you don't have ground to be selfish anymore. That my body is for him and his body is for me. And I think that can be taken out of context a lot of time, and be used against, whichever party. But I mean, scripturally, it's saying that so that it's like, you can't just be selfish with each other. It's about self-giving instead of taking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
That's good. That's really good. I like that. It's like, and that's probably actually one of the biggest pitfalls that we found in our culture and our society is we ultimately think our sexuality is for us, not for the other person.
Or for God.
Or for God.
Yeah.
As worship. Yeah, that's a good word. Yeah. So, well, thanks, guys. Again, thanks for your transparency and just being authentic and stuff like that. We'll definitely have more on this on our next service on September 11th. So thanks for clicking. I know this one was a little bit longer, but hey, I thought this was great content. So, all right, we'll see you guys. Have a great week.
Love you guys.